special Grid Night pre-race edition. We'll preview the NASCAR All-Star race going on tonight, plus Formula One back to the Hungarian Ring for the Hungarian Grand Prix, and the NTT IndyCar Series will be doing a doubleheader at Iowa Speedway. That and all the racing right here on Grid Tonight.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining for a special Grid Tonight program. We have a lot of racing ahead this weekend and news to report. I'm Kobe Lambert from the PodiumFinish.net, and with me right here is Joe Samniego. Joe, we have a full schedule of racing to look forward to this weekend, and especially
It's going to be a fun race weekend. Super excited about it and cannot wait to get all the racing action kicked off. A lot going on today and this weekend.
Yeah, and a reminder to all our fans watching live, feel free to comment in the live chat. We may answer your questions or share your picks for each race winner. And we start with the NASCAR All-Star race tonight from Bristol Motor Speedway. About a month ago, NASCAR announced the relocation of the race as the uncertainty around North Carolina with the pandemic became more apparent. The move has really generated a lot of excitement surrounding the race, and the past year, it seems to have lost, some of the hype around it. So, Joe, here's my question for you. What are you most excited about for tonight's NASCAR All-Star race?
For me, I am most excited about the choose cone rule. This is going to be really exciting to see how all the drivers handle. I anticipate we're going to see the first five drivers stay on the preferred lane, but then I think afterwards you're going to see more drivers prefer the left preferred lane. Bristol, that tends to be the lower lane, but that upper group becomes better. You can see the lane switch, so I'm really excited about that. And then, of course, it's at Bristol, brand new racetrack. We're not at the mile and a half oval of Charlotte. So those are a couple of things I'm most excited about for tonight's race.
Yeah, and the All-Star race is a unique event. For people who haven't watched the All-Star race before, only past winners from the 2019 and 2020 seasons, past champions and past All-Star race winners are in tonight's All-Star race. They're locked in, and the final four spots are still open for the drivers that are not currently in the All-Star race through the NASCAR Open. In the Open, the spots in the All-Star race will be handed to the two stage winners, the winner of the Open, and the fan vote winner. And this is a non-points race, so no playoff points, and it doesn't get scored in the grid ranking as well. This is the NASCAR experiment race, as it seemed like it's become in the past few years or so. Can you explain how this race has allowed NASCAR to test new rules and formats?
But the Winston, as it was originally known when it used to be part of the Winston Cup Series, was created as a fun event for the fans. No points, all for the money, go for the win. So we started seeing the double file race starts. That's where it originally was, just at the All Star race, not anywhere else. We saw that it took off to the point where that's what we see in every race. The inverted field, they introduced that during the Winston Select area. Most of the time, what would happen when the fans were able to select invert the field or not invert the field, they always inverted the field. And then we even had one year a giant Plinko board on how many cars got inverted. Then, of course, special paint jobs. That used to be something where Dale Earnhardt, everyone knew him for his black GM Goodwin Chevrolet. Jeff Gordon, the Rainbow Warrior. The All-Star race became something where we see special paint jobs. Now we have teams where they run different paint jobs all the time. So we a lot of times have seen it where new teams, the sport will try something new and sometimes take a break from the rules. 2001 Winston, we saw cars wreck on the first corner, first lap because rain had just started to fall. NASCAR allowed all the teams to go ahead and bring their backup cars out. That wouldn't happen in a regular point series race, but they allowed it at the All-Star race. As long as the option tire we saw a few years ago, and then of course the experimental aero patches, those are some of the more recent experiments. So always the All-Star race has had a good element of different ideas, a little break from the rules that we see in the points races, and a lot of times have created to where we see advances in the sport later on.
Yeah, and this year, along with the introduction of the choose cone rule, the cars will look a little different with the number sliding back from the door, allowing the front half of the door to be used for sponsorship placement and underglow lights underneath the car. Out of the three that I just mentioned, which one is more likely to be a permanent fixture in the sport in the distant future?
I definitely see the choose cone rule. If that's something where it could generate a lot of good racing, a lot of strategies, you can see a lot of teams lobbying for NASCAR to implement that. We already seen this before. Denny Hamlin was just one of the main drivers asking for the choose cone rule to be implemented. Just because if you are in that disadvantaged lane on any racetrack, you just fall back while the cars on the uh, preferred lane will just go right towards the front. So I think that's a big one. But anything could happen, especially in the All Star race.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think the choose cone could definitely be something that could become a fixture in NASCAR as soon as next season if tonight goes well. I know the choose cone works really well in the local short track racing community, and I truly believe that it's going to be very beneficial at certain tracks. Like Bristol, Darlington, and saw last week at Kentucky that the outside lane really seemed to kick off things. And if they had to choose cone at Kentucky, it could have prevented some of the drivers who were stuck on the inside line. It could have given them a chance to be in the preferred lane, and also with other tracks as well. Yeah, so I definitely think the choose cone could definitely become a fixture in NASCAR soon. And last time we were at Bristol, Brad Keselowski won a chaotic race after we saw Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, and Chase Elliott all lose the top spot. And remember that little incident between Chase Elliott and Joey Logano. Tempers flaring at Bristol. How chaotic do you think tonight's All Star race will be with $1 million on the line?
It's going to be super chaotic. I anticipate, especially the Open, the last chance for everyone to get into the All Star race. I think that's going to be really chaotic. You're going to see drivers doing everything they can to get into that All Star race. The drivers that feel like they could get in via the van vote, I think they're going to be a little bit more careful, especially it's Bristol. It's too easy to get caught up in somebody's mess. As for the All Star race itself, it's Bristol, baby. I think we're going to see a lot of the bump and run. We're going to see tempers flare. This is going to be a really exciting event. This is the event. If you have fans that have friends, family that have not seen a NASCAR race since the pandemic returned, highly encourage everyone. Tell your family, tell your friends, this is the race to watch. This is the All Star race, and it's going to be a really fun night of racing.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be one crazy hectic race, and it would not surprise me if we see tempers overflowing after the race. And you know what, Joe? If we see a fight after the race before they fight, hey, let's give the drivers hazmat suits and let them go at it. Yeah, that'd be really crazy. To see some drama unfold because with $1 million on the line, I'm sure these drivers will be willing to do whatever it takes to win, no matter what, even if it means sending your best buddy on the track into the wall. I'm sure those drivers would not care. Even Tony Stewart, when he was racing full time in NASCAR, he said he would wreck his own mother to win the race. And I'm sure a lot of other drivers would do the same. And looking back last week at Kentucky, Jimmy Johnson and Brad Keselowski made some contact at Kentucky, and Jimmy Johnson felt like that he was wrong. Do you think that we could see payback between Jimmy Johnson and Brad Keselowski tonight?
I definitely anticipate some payback. Honestly, if I was Brad Keselowski, my strategy would almost be put myself in a position where if Jimmy Johnson is spin me around at the All Star race, that is a lot more forgiven than having that occur at a points race, especially in the playoffs. You don't want Jimmy Johnson to cost you a win during the regular season and especially in the playoffs. So if there's a spot where if I was Brad Keselowski, he's like, okay, I got the win, but I got Jimmy Johnson behind me, and he's gonna me the bump and run. Maybe I'll just allow him to try to do that just so it gets out of the way and there's no problems in the future.
So, Joe, I've already mentioned what other drivers are willing to do for $1 million. And my question for you is, what would you do personally for $1 million if you're running second on the final lap coming to the checkered flag?
Definitely, I know I used to drive stock car race cars. Last lap, you got the bumper there. Definitely got to do the bump and run. Try to get in the inside. I don't think I would go as far as try to wreck them because when I race, I was an owner driver, so I know how much that costs. But that's what I think I'll try to do for the win. What about you?
Oh, they're definitely getting the bumper too. I mean, I wouldn't want to junk somebody's car because I know that costs a lot of money, and all the men and women who worked hard to prepare them cars understand that takes a lot of time and effort, and I'd hate to trash a fast race car. So it would never be my intention to wreck somebody, but I definitely I definitely shove him up the hill in the wall. It's in order to get that $1 million grand prize because for me, $1 million will be life changing. I'm a college student. I can pay off my student debt. Get I can get my own house and everything else and help out my family members and all of that. So for someone like me, $1 million would definitely change my lives, and I'd be willing to do whatever it takes in order to get the grand prize at the end of the day. And with no points on the line, everyone will be going hard for the win. Bristol is a short track where aerodynamics are not a major factor, so don't be surprised to see a beat up car in victory lane. And with that said, we invite all of our viewers to share who they think will win tonight's NASCAR All Star race. And Joe and I will make our picks for pick a winner. And Joe, how about you start off with our first pick a winner for tonight?
For tonight, I'm gonna go with a person that I think had the race won when we came here last time, Denny Hamlin. This is a good track for him to rebound. It's a non-points race. He's gonna go all out for the win tonight. So my pick for the All-Star race is gonna be Denny Hamlin.
Tonight, I think we're going to see a driver who was in contention in the last race we were at in Bristol a little while ago. I think Chase Elliott and the number 9 team will be all star race winners tonight, and you can watch the race tonight on FS1. We will be going over more NASCAR news later in tonight's program.
Definitely, it's gonna be really exciting to see, and we encourage everyone. I know we're seeing people sharing their picks on who's going to win. Be sure let us know if you're in the chat. If you have questions, we'll do the best we can to answer questions and show your comment on the air. MotoGP, super excited to announce that they're going to be racing coming up this weekend. They were one of the first series to be affected by the COVID-19 situation. Marc Marquez is the defending MotoGP champion and two-time defending grid ranking world champion. So it's going to be really exciting to see how well he does when he comes back. They're going to be in Spain, Jerez racetrack, a big favorite for all the riders there. And the big news, NBC Sports will be broadcasting the entire MotoGP season. This is the first time in a couple of years that MotoGP has been on American television. Last time was when they were on the Speed Channel. So it's been a few years. So we're super excited to see that. And my question for you, Kobe, with MotoGP now on American television, how big of a boost will this be for the MotoGP season?
Oh, Joe, this is going to be huge for MotoGP, and I will admit MotoGP is one of the championships that I unfortunately haven't had the pleasure of following closely because it's been hard to keep up with here in the United States and been on NBC Sports. I'm pretty sure that it's going to be a great benefit to all the people out there who have never been exposed to MotoGP before. I mean, I watched some of the races online before, and they're very excited. And I think that a lot of fans who haven't been able to see MotoGP yet, I think they'll definitely fall in love with it.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. I know a lot of times, especially since we were away from American televisions with MotoGP, a lot of folks don't know about, but there's so much I think people could really relate to. MotoGP has been coming to the United States for years. They even have race at the Indianapolis Road Course, Laguna Seca. They're currently in COTA. That's a bit doubtful this year with the pandemic situation. And there's been a good fair share of American champions. The last U.S. champion in MotoGP was the Kentucky kid, Nicky Hayden.
Yeah, with that said, one question for you, Joe. In March was the last time these teams got to test. Is Honda still the team to beat, or does Ducati or Yamaha have an opportunity to take the fight to them?
I definitely think Honda is still the team to beat. Marc Marquez, he is super hard to beat. The last time he was beat was Jorge Lopez won the championship with a Yamaha. And his big competition then was his own teammate Valentino Rossi. But of course, Marc Marquez missed part of the season with an injury. With that said, since Marc Marquez has came back, he's been really hard to beat. This is going to be, I think, another dominant year for him. With the pandemic, we've seen all the teams essentially do a shutdown. The smaller teams did get some revenue sharing, which was very beneficial for them. So that's going to be really starting to see that hopefully they're still not too far away. We saw last year Suzuki got a surprising win at Silverstone. So it's going to be a very exciting season. And I think when it comes to especially the grid ranking, it's going to be really interesting to see if Marc Marquez can repeat and be the first three-time champion. With that said, just taking a quick look at the grid ranking for Week 10, Scott McLaughlin reclaimed the lead after Scott Dixon finished outside the top 10. Valtteri Bottas is in second. After Formula One completed 2 races, they are now in the grid ranking. You can see Lewis Hamilton in fourth, Jamie Whincup fifth. Now, the SuperCars Series will be racing a triple header this weekend. And then with Texas, we got Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, they're 6th, 8th. Sebastian Ogier and Elfyn Evans with World Rally Championship. It's been a while to see them in action, but they're still up there just because of their strong performances. And Antonio Felix da Costa, Formula E, of course, they're going to be running 6 races in 9 days. So it's going to be really interesting to see when he come back. But that said, MotoGP, it's time for pick a winner. I know I got to go first the last round. Kobe, for the MotoGP race, who do you got winning?
I'm going with the safe pick and going with Marc Marquez.
Marc Marquez is definitely a safe pick. I'm going to go with Valentino Rossi. I know last season wasn't a great season for him. I think he's really going to be looking forward to coming back, trying to get wins, and hopefully try to get that other championship. It's the last series left that hasn't been scored in the grid, so everybody's going to be really excited once they complete their second race and see where the MotoGP racers rank in the grid ranking.
Yeah, now switching gears over to F1. Yeah, Formula One races in Hungary at the Hungarian Ring circuit in Budapest. Since 2010, Lewis Hamilton has won there 6 times. Sebastian Vettel has 2 wins on his resume with Daniel Ricciardo and Jensen Button with 1 win each. Many would expect Lewis Hamilton to run away with this Grand Prix. Do you see this happening, Joe?
Quite possibly. Lewis Hamilton, what he displayed at Austria last weekend, if he's hard to beat, if he's perfect, he's going to be likely cruising to a victory. With that said, though, still anything could happen. There could always be weather. We saw the reliability issue in the first race weekend. This is only the third race weekend for the Formula One series. So overall, I do feel Lewis Hamilton will be a safe bet for winning. Still, as Murray Walker would say, anything can happen in Formula One, and it usually does.
Yeah, and one concern that's been going on since qualifying in the last race weekend has been the threat of this Grand Prix not happening. So, paddock members from outside the European Union and the European Economic Area, including those from Britain, will be confined to the race venue and hotel accommodation during the weekend in line with local restrictions, and those caught breaking the law will face a fine or even imprisonment as some reports have highlighted. Joe, what has the FIA done to try and calm concerns about the Hungarian government and the race organizer?
So one of the things that FIA has done, they have implemented essentially a COVID-19 code of conduct plan. In this plan, it describes everything from the drivers, social distancing, mask mandates, everything with the team, how the team works with the driver, within each other in the garage. They limited the number of people in the garage area during the race, during practice. So they took a lot of steps to make sure the safety. When news came out about the Hungarian Grand Prix being doubtful, FIA right away said that their code of conduct is essentially meeting their government, and they created their code of conduct to try to meet the needs and concerns of other governments where they hold events.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be interesting to see how this situation unfolds, and we'll definitely keep you updated on the latest here on the Grid Network. And the top 5 in points is really surprising with Valtteri Bottas ahead of Lewis Hamilton. We have Lando Norris who's in third, and Charles Leclerc, Sergio Perez round out the top 5. Out of those who are currently in the top 5 in points, who do you see staying in the top 5, and who do you think is going to be the first to fall out?
Out of those, I honestly think, depending on how the race weekend goes, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Charles Leclerc fall out of the top 5. Sergio Perez, he has shown in Austria that racing point is looking really good. I see him finishing in the top 5 easily. Especially, he's really good at tire management. The strategy, the last first race didn't go that great. Second race, wing damage, he still brought it home. But I see him being in the top 5. Lando Norris, this is a sophomore year. This is a track where I think he could do really good because difficulty of passing, unless you have a really strong car, that McLaren is looking really good. So with those two looking good, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Charles Leclerc fall out of the top 5 points.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. I think Charles Leclerc right now might fall out because Ferrari has an improving package so far because they're really struggling, and it's going to be really interesting to see if the struggles are going to linger throughout the rest of the season, or is Ferrari going to finally, you know, find its footing in this in the 2020 Formula One season, and also think Sergio Perez and Racing Point they're gonna be pretty strong this year. There's a lot to be excited about at Racing Point, and especially heading into next year when they're gonna be rebranded as the Aston Martin Racing F1 team. And Aston Martin's currently struggling, with their sports car programs and all of that, and Aston Martin Formula One program is definitely going to add some excitement to the iconic British manufacturer. And last year, Max Verstappen was leading until Lewis Hamilton caught up to him, and everyone is anticipating Max to be the biggest threat to Mercedes. But what about his teammate Alex Albon?
Alex has to really show he can perform really well and be up there. I think a lot of folks were seeing how big of a distance there was between Max and Albon. I know we're getting to the point where last year, when Pierre Gasly was replaced by Alex Albon, a lot of people were thinking, okay, he's brand new, you got to give him time. Now we're to the point where we're coming to events where he has raced last year with Red Bull. So a lot of folks are going to be really looking and see where he stacks up, and is he really worth keeping in that seat spot, or if somebody else is. So I think the pressure is going to start building for Alex Albon.
Yeah, definitely. I think Albon's going to be on a lot of he's going to be under a lot of pressure to perform against his teammate Max Verstappen. And as we know in Formula One, you're directly compared to your teammate more than any other discipline of motorsports. And if you're not performing up to the same level as your teammate, people are going to start talking. And Alex Albon's seat might be under threat next year because there's some rumors that will get into in just a little while about some Formula One silly season news surrounding Racing Point, and maybe Alex Albon's seat might be under threat as a driver who might be ousted in favor of a multi-time Formula One champion. And we'll definitely an eye out for any future developments surrounding that. And it's also been reported that Valtteri Bottas has agreed to a deal to stay with Mercedes in 2021. How much of a confidence booster is this for Valtteri Bottas?
Very big confidence boost. This came only after his second race of the season. So he got that win. He got a second place. He secured that seat for next year. He could really just go out there and try to win, get a championship. He doesn't have to race, feeling additional pressure to try to keep the seat, especially since we all know Sebastian Vettel is looking for a ride. So this is very huge for Bottas, and we could easily, I think, see him have a really good career season.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's a good thing, Valtteri Bottas, like you mentioned, won't have to deal with any additional pressure at all, and he can just go out and focus on the championship this year. And although it looks like he's going to be at Mercedes again for another year, do you think it's a bit frustrating for him though, since they never seem to want to commit to him long term?
I would say it has to be a bit frustrating, especially Mercedes is the top team. When you get these short-term deals, there isn't the hope of, okay, a short-term deal, but then a better team can pick me up if I do really well. With Mercedes, you're the top of the top, so if you get a short deal, the only thing you can really do is just try to perform each year to keep that seat, or risk going to a seat that's a little bit rest of the best, as we call, with the teams in the back. So it's something where it has to be frustrating, but at the same time, I think it's reassuring, especially the announcement recently by Mercedes.
Yeah, and it's also rumored that Sebastian Vettel may join a rebranded Racing Point next season as a member of the Aston Martin Racing F1 team. Where do you see him fitting in next year if Vettel remains on the F1 grid? And with Lawrence Stroll owning the team, could Sergio Perez be the odd man out?
It's going to be really interesting to see. Of course, Lawrence Stroll has a huge say on everything going on with owning the team. Vettel will bring a lot of experience, a lot of feedback, a lot of knowledge to make the car even better. They're even going to have the same car as this season, of course. So already their cars are looking really good. Having Vettel in there, you're looking at potential wins, and I think Vettel is really going to be considering this option. As for Perez, could he be the odd man out? Possibly. It's going to be really hard. He has to really show this year he belongs in that seat. And I think the best way he could do it, he needs to have more than 2 wins, in my opinion. If he could get 1 win, great. I don't know if they'll keep him in the spot, but if he could get three, he's really then making a case of I brought these 3 wins, I earned another year in this seat.
Yeah, and if it's true that Sebastian Vettel is considering a deal for next year's Aston Martin Racing F1 team, which is currently Racing Point, it would definitely it would be a bummer for Sergio Perez because when the team was called Force India, Sergio Perez taking legal action is what saved the team from folding, and and it would like kind of be like a slap in the face. Since Sergio Perez is the one who saved this team from completely shuttering their operations and getting kicked out for Sebastian Vettel. And Joe, it just shows you that Formula One, and not just Formula One, but motorsports in general, any bit, is a cutthroat environment. And you can do something great like he did, save that team from folding, and then a few years later, kick him to the curb in favor of a multi-time Formula One world champion. So it'll be interesting to see if Vettel accepts his deal and who goes at it Racing Point. And I don't and as long as Lawrence Stroll is on the team, I don't think Lance Stroll is going anywhere at all. And with that being said, it's time for pick a winner, and I'm gonna let you go first this time, Joe.
For Formula One, here we are hungry. I think Valtteri Bottas is going to win. He's really going to try to show that this new deal for him and Mercedes is well worth it, and he's going to pull an upset over Lewis Hamilton and get the win.
Yeah, I'm going with Valtteri Bottas as well. I think his form is the best that it's ever been so far, and I believe that Valtteri Bottas is definitely going to take the fight to Lewis Hamilton for the F1 championship this year.
He is going to be taking that fight. He has a lot going for him right now, and currently the points leader. So it's going to be really interesting to see how everything turns out. One of the big interesting stories that came out, Tony Stewart on Monday, surprise announcement. A lot of people did not see this coming. Him, along with Ray Everham, have reached a television deal with CBS Network for IROC type series. Now, this series will be called the SuperCars Racing Experience, or SRX for short. It will consist of 6 short track races starting the next summer. There'll be 12 drivers per race, and they'll be in identical cars designed by Ray Everham with identical equipment. Plus, one big change we'll see, the drivers will be randomly paired with a crew chief for each race. Now, thanks to YouTube, the past IROC races have been shared multiple times on YouTube for fans to watch. With this news returning such a big positive response, how excited are the fans to see something similar to IROC return back in the racing industry?
I think it'll be a fantastic addition to the motorsports industry. I go on. I've been on YouTube before, see all the IROC races. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I wish I was following motorsports during the term. I mean during the time of IROC's heyday and all of that. But I didn't really pick up on motorsports until the mid 2000s, and it was just too late, and I didn't it was just I didn't get to see it. But as I've gotten older, I've grown to appreciate all forms of motorsports, all disciplines, all of that, and respect all the drivers from around the world who compete in stock cars, open wheels, sports car, dirt, rallycross, whatever it is. And um and fans and fans nowadays, it seems like they're more open to seeing crossovers, like drivers racing in other series. And if Tony Stewart and Ray Abraham is going to bring back something to resemble, to be like modern day iRock, I definitely think that that is going to be something amazing for fans to see. Because imagine having a race with Jimmy Johnson, Fernando Alonso, Will Power, Sebastian Ogier, Scott McLaughlin, Elfin Evans, all of those guys in the same race. And it would and driving what I'm assuming is going to be equal equipment and all of that. And I think that seeing all those world class drivers from all over the world, the best from NASCAR, IndyCar, maybe F1, WEC, IMSA, World Rallycross, Supercars. I think it's definitely going to be something that will sell a lot of tickets.
It will sell a lot of tickets. You bring up a really good point, especially if we see drivers from Formula One, IndyCar. I'm hoping we do see crew chiefs from the different disciplines too, because already if you just have great NASCAR crew chiefs, the NASCAR drivers might have a little bit of an advantage just because they know the lingo more, especially when it comes to what they're saying short track, compared to a Formula One driver that now is trying to learn new terms and explain it to a crew chief who has more experience with NASCAR. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do with the crew chief. Now, in this meeting, well, announcement, essentially they said that most of the racing will take place in the heartland of the United States. Is this Stewart essentially meeting the demand for more dirt track racing instead of the same super speedways where the past IROC series used to race on?
Yeah. I definitely think that the fans would definitely enjoy watching these drivers from all disciplines compete at short tracks or dirt tracks. I mean, the asphalt short tracks and then the dirt tracks. It's definitely different. I was yeah. When the series announced that they had been formed, it was really interesting to see. It seems like they're not interested in going to places like Daytona and Talladega. It seems like you mentioned short track and dirt track seem to be the things, and it would be interesting if they threw in a road course as well. Like watching, I think with the road courses, it would definitely be a lot easier for maybe like say a Fernando Alonso, who's used to competing on those type of tracks. Although with this new style of IROC car that they're developing, we still don't really know a lot of details. Well, actually, I don't think we know any about the car, but I know that Tony Stewart says that he wants it to be more about driver skill and equipment and with mechanical grip as well and high horsepower, low downforce. Basically everything that NASCAR fans have been asking for with the new next gen car, which is set to debut in 2022.
Yeah, it seems especially they're really wanting to get it to where dirt tracks. It would be really something else if this was a series where we had dirt tracks, road courses, super speedway probably in there, even throwing in a street course if possible. That would just be the ultimate. I mean, you have drivers from around the world, essentially from the grid ranking almost. You got different types of tracks. This is something that, especially such a short summer season, I think would be really great. Super excited that CBS has agreed to this deal. It's been a while since they had shown any racing on their broadcasting channel. So it's definitely going to be something we'll be following for any further developments. We definitely love to hear from everyone. Which drivers would you love to see in this new series?
Yeah, and back to NASCAR. Last week, it was reported that NASCAR is considering a ban on political sponsorships on the race cars. This came up after Go Fast Racing had a political action committee pay the team to run a Trump 2020 paint scheme, and the president tweeted at NASCAR and Bubba Wallace the next day questioning their leadership. Joe, why do we see politically sponsored cars in NASCAR but not other racing series all over the world?
Well, one big reason why the FIA, the Federation of the International Automobiles, has a rule that forbids any political sponsors on a car. So taking a look at their 2020 International Sporting Code, Article 10.6.2, competitors taking part in international competition are not allowed to affix to their automobiles advertising that is political or religious in nature or that is prejudicial to the interests of the FIA. Now, of course, the FIA does not govern NASCAR, so NASCAR has their own approvals of sponsors. We've seen in the past where they allow some sponsors, not allow certain other sponsors. But one big thing is we do see political groups where political parties, campaigns, political action committees, they see there's a demographic in NASCAR. When NASCAR was really booming in the 90s, the term NASCAR dads became a political group were essentially, well, not political group, but political target for the political campaign. They saw them as fans of NASCAR that were loyal to their drivers. Being loyal to their drivers, they were loyal to Chevrolet, Ford, or Dodge, to their product, whether it was Tide, Lowe's, or Home Depot. They were very brand loyal fans. So that's one target group a lot of political groups targeted. Of course, as well, the team, they're looking for sponsorship. With Corey LaJoie's team, they got a 9 race deal with this political action committee. That's 9 races. They don't have to look for a primary sponsor. NASCAR didn't have a rule against political campaigns or religious campaigns on cars before. So we did see cars usually like Racing for Christ. We've seen political campaigns, especially in presidential years like this year. And in the past, they've had a small presence, usually like one, maybe 2 races. This political action committee doing 9 races, sort of a big step, and I think it got a lot of folks surprised.
Yeah, so Joe, if NASCAR does move forward and ban political sponsorship, like basically every other racing series in the world, how challenging do you think it will be for NASCAR to enforce this? Because I know there might be some gray areas in enforcing a type of rule like this of what's considered political and what's not.
It is very different, especially in the United States. The United States, of course, our political system is a little bit more different than what we see in other countries. For instance, here we have political action committees, lobby groups, special interest groups as well. NASCAR, they could do something as broad as the FIA that says anything political in nature or religious in nature. Very broad. It comes down to enforcing it. Because, like you said, somebody could say, hey, this car is not political. This is just making a stand that we support something. But you could have another group that says this is political. So I think while NASCAR, when they're going to draft up the rules, I'm pretty sure they're going to work with experts to try to get this right. Still, when it comes to enforcing it and interpreting the rules, it's going to be really, really challenging.
So overall, do you think it might be a good move by NASCAR to do this? To create the rule and not allow political sponsorships, or do you think it might backfire in certain ways because for one, if they don't allow this because they consider it political, and then they allow something else, but they don't consider it political, but the other side considers it political. Yeah, even if that rule does come across, it might be really really messy, right?
Yeah, it could come out pretty messy. That's why it's going to be really challenging for NASCAR. Overall, I do see this as being a sort of a good move from NASCAR. If I was in NASCAR shoes, I might look at something where I'll implement this the following season, so that way next year everything will be more clear and dry. The last thing you will want is make an announcement mid-season and then have a team say, "Oh, we just cost us a sponsorship." So it's gonna be really interesting how everything turns out.
Yeah, yeah. In my opinion, I believe if they do make the move to ban political sponsorship, I believe it's something that they should start at the beginning of the 2021 season. Because like right now, I wouldn't want to punish Go Fast Racing for already having their sponsorship deal in place, or any other teams that might have their deals in place. You definitely don't, given the current state of what's going on right now in the world, you definitely don't want to hurt those teams at all any more than they've already been hurting. And so I definitely think that it's not a good idea to make this move in the middle of the season. I say maybe like work the details, and if you are going to do it, announce it later in this season that it will start effective immediately at the beginning of 2021. And I think that that would be the best way to go about this if NASCAR does move towards banning political sponsorship. And this is a story that we will keep following and reporting on right here on the Grid Network.
So one of the things Grid Network we're super excited about, the NTT IndyCar Series is going to have a double header at Iowa Speedway. This is going to be really exciting. This is their second weekend in a row for the IndyCars doing a double header weekend. Scott Dixon, he has been putting on a clinic all year so far, but this last race on Road America or pit road, he made a mistake, stalled it, fell behind, finished offside the top 10 in the race, which cost him the grid ranking lead. When it comes to the Grid World Motorsport League, though, Scott Dixon is still second there. Of course, with the World Motorsport League, Scott Dixon had completed the minimum 5 events from any series to be up there. That's how he got there. As you can see, it's mostly NASCAR drivers. Scott McLaughlin, of course, leads the Grid World Motorsport League as well. But will be really interesting to see how everything turns out, especially with all the racing going on this weekend. Now, this weekend will be the 14th and the 15th IndyCar race at Iowa Speedway for the NTT IndyCar Series. And Scott Dixon has never won at this track. Is this the best opportunity for everyone to close the gap on Scott Dixon?
Oh yeah, definitely. It would not surprise me if we see some drivers who already haven't had a good start to the 2020 season get up there and try to kick their season into high gear. And with this being 2020, we've seen stranger things happen, and so that might mean that we might see Scott Dixon visit victory lane.
Yeah, we could see Scott Dixon victory lane. One of the things as well too, I think, especially being in the oval, we're going to try to see a lot of drivers capitalize on everything. When it comes to capitalizing, Honda has been dominant. Of course, they've won every race. Only Chip Ganassi has won any race in the IndyCar Series. Road America this last race, they had essentially most of the top 10. Chevrolet, they have 3 wins at Iowa, and they're going to try to, in the last 5 years, they're going to try to get another win. Will you see a Chevrolet making it the fourth win for Chevrolet here?
Yeah, I definitely think that we're gonna see a Chevrolet go to victory lane. And I'll let you know which Chevrolet driver I think is gonna win when we get to IndyCar. Pick a winner.
Now, when it comes to IndyCar pick the winner, and you mentioned Chevrolet, one Chevrolet team is definitely Roger Penske's Team Penske. Now, Penske hasn't been perfect, especially in pit road. That's where we saw mistakes for Joseph Newgarden, for Will Power, essentially cost them the race at Road America. Iowa has traditionally seen between 2 to 7 cautions in the last 5 years. How important is it to put on a good pit stop, especially under green flag conditions?
Oh, it's absolutely crucial to do a, to capitalize on pit road, especially during green flag pit stops, because even the slightest mistake you can lose a lot of track position, and it can end up derailing your entire day at Iowa.
Yeah, you fall behind, another team gets a better pit stop, you lose even more ground, and then of course you fall behind, and the caution comes out. Unless you can capitalize on the wave around, you just put yourself in a really hard spot. Pit road, especially during the yellows, will be very important. We saw that at Road America. So it's going to be really important for all the pit crews to be on their A game. One of them, of course, Joseph Newgarden. He won here last year. Since 2015, he has won a race at least once every season. Doesn't have any wins yet so far. Will he win at Iowa this weekend?
Yes, he will. And Joseph Newgarden is my pick a winner. I think Joseph Newgarden and Team Penske is going to end the domination from Chip Ganassi Racing with Scott Dixon and Felix Rosenqvist been the only drivers to win so far.
That's a good pick. Joseph Newgarden. I'm going to go, I think, especially since we got a doubleheader for the first race, I think I'm going to go with Felix Rosenqvist. I think he might have the momentum and shock everybody with his first IndyCar oval race. Now we got the first race out of the way. When it comes to the second race, who are you looking at?
Oh yeah, I forgot. I almost forgot it was a doubleheader, and I'm gonna go with Felix Rosenqvist for the second race.
Felix Rosenqvist. Wow, so we both got Felix. I got the first, you got the second. That's going to be really interesting to see how this turns out. I do see, especially in the second race, I'm going with all Hondas. I'm going to go with Rossi. He's going to come back. He got third place this last race weekend. I think he'll be strong in the first race, but I don't think he's going to get the win. But I think the second race he's going to go for and earn that first win for the season.
Yeah. And speaking of double headers, which my mind completely blanked out for a second. I almost forgot it was a double header weekend. But with the double header, the IndyCar this afternoon announced a unique qualifying format for this double header. They're going to be qualifying on Friday evening at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time on NBC Sports Gold, and then you can also watch qualifying on NBCSN at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time as well. And with the qualifying format, instead of being like Road America, where you have two qualifying sessions in 2 separate days, there's only going to be one qualifying session. They're going to run 2 laps on Friday evening. The first lap is going to be your starting spot in the race one on Friday night, and then on Saturday, Friday the second lap on Friday, that's going to be where you start on Saturday. So it's definitely going to be interesting because that's something that I have never seen before. What do you think? What do you think of the unique qualifying format at Iowa Speedway, where the first lap is gonna put you where you're starting in the first race, and then your second lap you turn is gonna be where you're starting in the second race?
It's going to be very interesting. It makes it where you only have to do a setup for one qualifying session, not two. Traditionally, when we have two separate qualifying sessions, you got to take into account the weather on day one, the weather on day two, the setup. Is the track hot? Is it cool? Now it's just one evening you do the setup. That second race, especially, you could have a totally different track situation where you may have missed the setup that first race, but through the notes from the first race, put yourself in the second race in a really good spot. I think it's going to be really interesting. And if there's one thing this entire pandemic situation has, it seems to have allowed all the series the ability and the freedom to try new ideas. And this is one that got me excited.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely like the idea as well. And if IndyCar does any more, double headers in feature season, if it's at an oval track, I definitely think that that's really interesting, and I also think that's an idea that I love to see adapted in NASCAR as well. If the Pocono double header returns next year, it will be interesting. If NASCAR did two laps of qualifying, and how fast you were on the first lap, that's where you start in race one, and how fast you were on the second qualifying lap, that's where you were starting the following day in race two. So I definitely think that that would be something I'd like to see in not only IndyCar, but I think it could serve well for NASCAR oval double headers as well. And moving on to the news from Formula E, the last Formula E race was on February 29th, 2020, when Antonio Felix da Costa won the Marquez E Prix, and since the global pandemic has halted their season. And despite the halt, their silly season has been very active, especially lately. And for new race fans or veteran fans wondering what the term silly season means, this is the period when drivers and teams make announcements on changes for the next season, commonly a driver leaving or joining a team. And Tuesday, the biggest Formula E silly season move was announced when Sam Bird and Envision Virgin Racing announced that they would part ways at the end of the season. And shortly after that announcement, Jaguar Racing announced that they signed Sam Bird to join Mitch Evans in their Formula E team. And for fans not familiar with Formula E, Joe, can you explain how big of a move this is for Formula E with Sam Bird going to Jaguar?
It's a very big move. The best way I can compare it, if we remember when Dale Earnhardt Jr. said, I'm going to be open to join another team, and he left DEI. DEI was his Winston Cup team from when he started with his rookie year, even the races before his rookie year to gain some experience, and shocked the world essentially when he went to Rick Hendrick Motorsport. Sam Bird has been part of Envision Virgin Racing since Formula E started with the first race in Beijing. Every year he has gotten a win. Every year he's usually up in the top half of the point standings. Last season he dropped down to ninth. Currently he's 10th in the points. So definitely it seems like the performance has dropped, maybe a miscommunication or the car is just not to his liking. So to hear, I believe it was Formula E Zone that first broke the rumor that this was going to happen, that got a lot of people attention. And then to hear the news come out, very big news in the Formula E. And the best way to compare it is to when Dale Earnhardt Jr. left DEI.
Yeah, with Sam Bird's big move to Jaguar, is anything less than a championship? You know, do you think Sam Bird should be expected to win a championship with Jaguar? And if he doesn't ever win a Formula E championship with Jaguar, do you think that this move will be deemed as a failure?
I would definitely say when it comes to him going to Jaguar, this is a championship move. He got a win already this season. The team, Virgin Racing, him, they could be happy with just, okay, we got wins, but we're trying to get a championship. But now it's to the point where I believe part of this was we're seeing the improvement of Jaguar. Jaguar, their first season in Formula E, didn't make a whole lot of noise. Now, Mitch Evans, he is looking really good for the championship. Putting Sam Bird in there, those two drivers are going to be really hard to beat. And I do see where if Sam Bird doesn't get a championship with Jaguar, some will see it as a failure that he didn't live up. And quite possibly, we're seeing how competitive a seat in Formula E is, his time might be coming up. sooner than some people anticipate.
Yeah, and with Sam Bird leaving Envision Virgin, it left many fans wondering who in the world would take his place. And today you got your answer because Nick Cassidy was announced as the replacement for Sam Bird. And with Bird leaving the Envision Virgin team, it left some big shoes to fill. Do you think it's realistic to anticipate that Nick Cassidy is going to be ready to win when he starts in Formula E? Since he's been a well respected driver over in Japan, competing in Super Formula and Super GT.
Yes, I do think it's a realistic expectation to see him win at least one race. Back when they did the rookie test, I believe at Marrakesh, he set the fastest time. It was amazing. He got everyone talking about his skills. Great resume over racing in Japan. And one unique thing about Formula E compared to the other racing series like Formula One, NASCAR, or IndyCar, they visit very different tracks very often. I know the next 6 races at Berlin is going to be different course layouts. Every year they seem to have a brand new course because all their courses are in city centers. So especially in a track where it's brand new for everyone in the series, he'll easily be a favorite to win. Even at the tracks where they are returning, he has shown he has the speed. I think he could easily earn a win.
Yeah, it would not surprise me to see Nick Cassidy find immediate success in Formula E. As I mentioned, he's done incredible things in Japan, racing in Super Formula and Super GT. Two of Japan's most respected championships, and the competition is fierce and intense over there as well. And in my opinion, I think Nick Cassidy is a very underrated driver, and I think that he has the ability to race in Formula One as well if the opportunity came knocking on his door.
Yeah, it will be really interesting to see the opportunities that have to follow, especially if he does perform really well. I do see big things for him. And of course, next year, Formula E is going to be a world championship. So that's going to be a really big deal. And I think we're going to see a lot of drivers start wanting to spot in Formula E. Now, of course, Formula E has been pretty popular on the internet. One thing that has been going around the internet lately is a comment made by NASCAR driver Corey LaJoie, which has been under criticism for comments he made on the radio program. Now, Corey LaJoie appeared on Sunday Monday and told a story about ordering a Philly cheesesteak sandwich. In the story, he referenced to a racial stereotype of Asian Americans, including using a mocked-in voice of an Asian accent. Now, the program aired on February 13th, 2020, and for the most part, hasn't received the attention until recently. Toby, why has there been under the radar this story until recently?
Well, I've had some emotional conversations with my editor in chief at the podium finish, Rob Tiongson, about this particular subject behind the scenes. Rob is an Asian American from the Philippines, and he was deeply offended and hurt by Corey LaJoy's comments. It doesn't matter if those comments were said months ago. He was never held accountable for his words. And I only learned of the audio myself a few weeks ago when a fan posted and I saw it on my timeline. I was absolutely shocked that Corey LaJoy said something like that on Sunday Money. And when I first heard it, it was just like, wow. I was just more shocked that it went largely unnoticed until now. Honestly, I think all of the progressive changes lately, taking a stand against racism, brings more awareness and attention to situations like this. And with the platform and being a well-respected journalist, my editor in chief at the Podium Finish, Rob Tiongson, decided to bring attention to this issue himself. He chose not to remain silent anymore and speak his mind. And for being brave and speaking out directly against Corey LaJoy for his insensitive remarks. I truly respect and admire Rob for being the person that he has always been, a leader, not afraid to stand up for what he believes is right. I feel so fortunate to work for him and learn from him at the podium finish. And for the past few months, Rob chose to stand with me in the black community during emotional times. Even when I decided to speak out some stuff, and some people were attacking me. Rob stood with me, and he listened to me. And this time, I listened to him. It's a two-way street, and the roles are reversed now. I stand with Rob in the Asian American community forever and always. In the end, I hope that Corey LaJoy is able to understand why his comments were hurtful and offensive to Rob and others in the Asian American community.
100% agree with you. It was hurtful. especially when we see stereotypes. I know in the past, a lot of people have seen the stereotypes and not as so much hurtful. Sometimes they see it as like comedic effect and all that, but still, it's targeting a race group and it's hurtful. I know there's a lot of people, especially with the discussion going on this week about the Washington Redskins. They're finally gonna change football names. A lot of people were bringing up this discussion again about is that offensive, and the simple answer is yes, it is. There's a group of people that find it offensive and doesn't belong. Corey LaJoie's comments, they were wrong. He could have easily told that story about a not so great Philly cheese steak sandwich without having to bring in race into that story. It's definitely something where, especially as you mentioned, we're progressing forward, realizing more and more. It's a good learning opportunity. And then the increase of tension NASCAR has experienced since returning from the pandemic has brought in new fans from a diverse background and potentially new sponsors from a diverse background as well. As NASCAR continues to be more inclusive for everyone, how important is it to recognize comments that are offensive to a particular group of fans?
It's extremely disappointing that Corey LaJoie's comments have been effectively, swept under the rug so far. If NASCAR says that they stand for inclusiveness, we need to recognize comments like what Corey LaJoie did. Corey LaJoie didn't. He could, like you mentioned, he could have told that story, without mocking an Asian American's accent. That was totally uncalled for on his part. And this happened in February, Joe, and we are finally hearing about this months later. It makes no sense whatsoever. I don't care if he said several months ago. It was insensitive and hurtful to some. He wasn't held accountable at all. We won't move forward until we start holding everyone accountable for their actions, even if you strongly support him or consider them a good friend. Accountability, accountability, accountability.
I agree. Definitely accountability is very important. The big thing with accountability too is also the opportunity to teach and learn from mistakes. And hopefully this is something Corey Joy can learn from, especially because what he did was just uncalled for.
Yeah, yeah. I hope Corey LaJoie is able to learn from that as well, and it'll be interesting to see if anything happens moving forward since Rob Tiongson and Alanis King Jones have also brought more awareness to it on social media. And moving on to the next topic, the Virgin Australia SuperCars Series returns to Sydney Motorsports Park for a triple header weekend. The series has been plagued with changes to the calendar, and recently several teams have been working out of temporary headquarters after leaving the province of Victoria. And Scott McLaughlin looks like the favorite for the weekend, but we saw Nick Percat surprise everyone with a win. Could we expect a similar thing this weekend?
Maybe Motorsports, I think we'll see something similar. I do see Scott McLaughlin going out. I would be shocked if he doesn't win a race there. We could see a surprise winner somewhere there where it is Nick Percat. David Reynolds is always a good favorite as well. So I do see something where we might see something similar. I wouldn't be surprised seeing Scott McLaughlin take the win. Maybe seeing another driver like David Reynolds get a win, and then possibly a Red Bull driver, or it could be all Scott McLaughlin again.
Yeah, and Jamie Wincup and Shane Van Gisbergen are both looking to earn a win and catching up to Scott McLaughlin. Will one of them earn the win?
I believe so. I do believe Shane Van Gisbergen is looking at potentially getting a win this race weekend. First, that team's always been looking good. He's really been giving Scott McLaughlin a run for his money, and I see him being a potential threat for the win.
Yeah, yeah. Now it's time for our three pick of winners. And Joe, I'm gonna let you go first.
All right, three races. It's going to be really interesting. I think for the first race, I'm going to lean towards Scott McLaughlin, safe pick. Second race, Shane. I see Shane being a good second pick for the second race to get that win. And then for the third race, I'm going to go out there and say Jamie Winnicup. He already got a win this season. He wants to get some more.
Yeah, my race one, safe pick, just like Joe. Scott McLaughlin. Race 2, also like Joe, Shane Van Gisbergen. And in race 3, going to go for a wild card. I'm going to say Chaz Mostert.
Taskmaster really looking good as well this year. Let's see how he does. It's going to be very exciting. And of course, a reminder to all our fans, we'll be posting Pick a Winner on Twitter. So definitely be sure to share your picks. This is a big race weekend going on. Now, yesterday, some big news that came out of NASCAR was announced the Cash App agreed to a multi-year deal with Richard Petty Motorsports to sponsor Bubba Wallace number 43 car for 5 races and will serve as the associate sponsor throughout the season. Now, Cash App will start their relationship with RPM and Bubba Wallace this weekend at Texas Motor Speedway as the primary sponsor. Additionally, it will be on the car at Loudon, the Southern 500, the Bristol Night Race, and Kansas Speedway in the fall. Toby, do you see this as the turning point for Bubba Wallace and Richard Petty Motorsports with more sponsors beginning to take notice?
Yeah, I definitely think that this definitely is an exciting time for Bubba Wallace and Richard Petty Motorsports. As we all know, that they've been struggling for funding for quite a while now, and since Bubba Wallace has been outspoken for progressive changes in NASCAR, and getting attention from a lot of celebrities and professional athletes, and also now corporate businesses are starting to take notice of Bubba Wallace, and if Bubba, standing up for a good cause, and for everything right in the world. It makes him look very marketable and good in the eyes of a business owner, and it'll be interesting to see if Bubba Wallace can get those corporate sponsors in order to build the number 43 program moving forward.
Yeah, it's very exciting, especially for RPM. If they could get more sponsors to build that program out, it could really entice Bubba to stay there at RPM rather than go towards another team because there's always something fun, build something from the ground up. Bubba Wallace seems to have that team really surrounded him. They're performing really well. I see them running in the All Star race. I think he might get the popular vote. So it's going to be really interesting to see everything that's going to happen with that 43 team and Richard Petty Motorsports. With that said, we are now out of time, and that'll do for Grid tonight's pre-race edition. We ask everyone, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. We'd love to have you join us for future programs as well. We got, of course, Life on the Grid, which is going to be a brand new, exciting program. I know, is there anything you'd like to add about this new exciting program, Toby?
Oh yeah, with Life on the Grid, it's going to be an opportunity to meet members of the motorsports community and learn a lot more about their role in the motorsports community. And we're excited to announce that our first guest is going to be Mr. Brett Winningham from Speedway Digest. So we're me and Joe, we're very excited to have Brett on here so you can learn about what life on the grid has been like for Brett as a motorsports journalist.
Definitely, we encourage everyone. We'll be posting more announcements throughout the coming week. For Kobe Lambeth at thepodiumfinish.net, I'm Joe San Diego. Thank you for watching. Enjoy tonight's All-Star race and the entire weekend full of races.